Hello, again. Astrology, numerology versus genetics. Odd subject, and yet it's something that pertains to all of us. Well, those of us who have reached that point where the question comes up, who am I? What am I doing here? And where am I supposed to be going? Most often I would say it arises, such a question arises after the age of 30. 40, 50, and especially if one's had a minor heart attack or a bit of a scare, and one realizes how fragile one is. Or at a funeral. Actually, the title should be Astrology, Numerology and Reincarnation versus genetics. Now, genetics, DNA, this is the new scientific paradigm, medical paradigm, and it's great because with our DNA it gives us an indication of what our body is predisposed towards, predisposed to putting on weight as against being thin. The family history predisposed towards heart attacks or lung problems. Thankfully, generally in my family they live to a ripe old age, although I'm already surpassing a few of them. And apart from I catch a cold or the flu and I don't do something about it, it gets into my lungs, and then I've got problems for a few weeks until I can build up my resistance and so forth and get rid of it. But to that end, I haven't had the flu or cough for probably 4 or 5 years now, and even my partner Monica, when she had the cold about a month or two ago, I didn't catch it from her, which is often happens. It floats around in the family when one's in close proximity. I don't take vaccines. I'm not against vaccines, but I'm very much against what they put in vaccines apart from the vaccine, and a lot of the stuff they put in to assist the vaccines, like aluminium and what have you, ain't good for the body. Anyway, what people do is their business. But I don't like putting foreign things into my body, things that I don't think may not agree with them. And so far it's worked for me. But with genetics, the future looks rosy, because with that, knowing your DNA, there's things they can do with it, modify it. Some people are not particularly for that on philosophic and religious grounds. But why astrology, numerology, and really reincarnation? Why are they versus or up against the genetics? Well, genetics are to do with our body. That's our present body, the body we are, you and I, are inhabiting at this present time. But it's the body that we're taking on loan, and until it wears out, dies for one reason or another, we make use of it. And mine's certainly been good for me up to this date, hasn't let me down. But that's our body. Certainly our mind is attached to our body, but our consciousness, our soul, our divine spark, as the Cathar Gnostics put it, these are immutable from the point of creation, from the time we gain our first divine spark, we're created. From that point onwards, we're given the gift of immortality for eternity. And we will use, possibly abuse, and ultimately cast aside that body for that lifetime, be reincarnated again, use that body, use up that body, and move on to the next one at the next reincarnation. Now, on each occasion, the body that you take loan of for that lifetime, it's caught up in its genetic history, the ancestry of that body. This is the DNA of that body. But you're only just taking loan of it. It's yours for that reason, for that lifetime, because it suits you and suits your purpose to use that body and its DNA for that lifetime. But over here, what is immutable, which is unchanging, is our the DNA of our divine spark, our soul, although they're separate. And that is our innermost core, our unchanging individuality, our personality in there, whether we're male, female, black, round, or whatever race or colour or culture we are. The basic personality, our innermost core, does not change. Male, female, gay, straight, whatever. That doesn't change, and we carry that from lifetime to lifetime till we hopefully, or we will, ultimately get off the wheel of reincarnation. But we continue on in the world of spirit and to the various higher dimensions. How high they go and how far they go, I don't know. So it's nice to know, and especially if the DNA of our body, our genetic history sometimes is not good, but it's nice to know that is not us. That is merely the body, and the body is a temple, but it's carrying our brain, our mind, our consciousness, and our divine spark. That does not change. That is irrevocable. I think this is good news. And so, in other words, our DNA, it is you as far as your body is concerned, but it's not you as far as your personality and higher consciousness is concerned. And of course, all this is about reincarnation. Possibly an odd way of putting it, but there's an old Chinese Yan Yu, an old Chinese wise saying. It's about the Lao and there's an old person, and he had this home, but there was a mountain blocking his view. So he decided, well, you know, it's not going to go away unless I do something about it. So he started off and he started digging away and chipping away at the mountain. And of course the other people in the village thought, what a foolish old man. You know, there's no way that you will get rid of that mountain in your lifetime. You're already old. And he replied, yes, but my sons and their family will chip away and dig away at it, and their sons and grandsons and great-grandsons, and they will continue on until the mountain is no more. So in China, this is kids learn that at school to show you anything can be accomplished through persistence. But it also illustrates that with reincarnation, that with all these succeeding lifetimes, you can get rid of your mountain, your mountain of the human mountain, the human condition, and move towards your higher consciousness. So when the mountain is removed you are moving towards your higher consciousness, towards unconditional love, where you're beyond the worries, the normal worries and anxieties that plague us and we concern us, and you get beyond them and you get beyond fear, and instead of when someone dies, sure, you might be sad for the person, but the best thing about life is death, because you're moving on to the world of spirit, where your real home, and it's a fine place to be. So when someone dies, really it should be a time of rejoicing instead of weeping. Of course, one may miss that person and their company, that's a different story. So, regarding astrology, numerology, and reincarnation, it's the astrology. Who are we? What am I doing here and where am I going? Well, it's the numerology and the astrology that can assist us in knowing our real personality, knowing really who we are, our innermost core. Because I must say, and I've mentioned before about astrology, that I've been lucky enough with the people I have had my astrological chart read. As far as my personality, they've all been the same. Well, they should be, because they're reading the same star pattern that occurred when I was born. So they should be the same, with minor variations. But the one thing that did not happen was that not one of them managed to foretell, predict some of the major events in my life. For instance, none of them predicted when I would get married, or the fact I would get married. None predicted that I would go to 3 wars or 3 conflicts. Now, these are fairly major events in one's life. And so, going on that, one would say, yes, astrology is great for predicting one's personality, one's innermost core, psychologically, psychically, but not that great for predicting the future. You see, there's always an exception. There was this guy, Roy Probert, certainly his name was Probert, and this was many, many, many years ago. And someone suggested that I see him and that he do a chart for me, astrological chart. I said he's very good. And he didn't charge, but he'd say, yes, I'll do yours or I won't do you. So not charging, he could pick and choose whose chart he wished to do. But he said, yes, yeah, John, I'll do your chart for you. Come back in a week's time. And so I met him at the same place, which was Repin's Coffee Lounge in King Street in Sydney, long since been pulled down. And there he was, short guy. Oh, sitting down you wouldn't know, but when he stood up he was virtually only up to my neck. And John, he said, I'm sorry, I left your chart, astrological chart, up in my office. But he said, never mind, I'll remember the main things. He said, I can remember, and I'll tell you. And he said, you've already been to 1 war, and you go to 2 more. I said, I don't think so. 1 was enough for me. He said, well, you are. And not only that, you'll be married by the end of the year. I said, I don't even have a girlfriend. He said, that's what it's telling me, and that's what I'm telling you. Oh, okay. So, I just thought, well, there's no way he's correct there. I don't have a girlfriend. And yet, what happened? By the end of the year, I was married. And then I went on to serve in 2 more conflicts, which was the Indonesian confrontation and Vietnam. The Korean War being the first one. So he was spot on. But the others, not one of the other, the half dozen, mentioned these facts. So therefore, which is so if someone does do your chart, and it may not be 100%, or maybe you may have some misgivings about it, or your numerology. So don't just give up on it because of one. In my case, there were 6 people, top people. One was a top guy in London, and expensive, and they didn't. And yet there was this Roy Probert, and he was spot on. So, but it is through things such as astrology, numerology, because these are the times, the star pattern that we had on our birth, the dates and the numbers and so forth that we had on our birth, and of course that's immutable, and they can give us quite a good indication towards who we are, what we're all about. Now, I also found this book by Rose Stein, but it combined both the Chinese astrological signs with the Western and joined them together and give an indication as to the personality. Now that is remarkable. The combination of both signs. So here we have our genetic code, our DNA, which is telling us our human condition as regards our body. But that's our body, and it's what we have to live with in this lifetime, and for all its pluses and minuses. But over here, we have systems that can give us a greater indication of to who we really are. Of course, we've got things such as experiences, our life, things that happen in our life, our knowledge. Some people have, now I can say I've met quite a few people now who, and although it hasn't happened to me, who have at various stages of their life start to have far memories of lives and previous lifetimes. Thankfully, because of through hypnosis and meditation and the assistance of other people, I managed to have some past lives, so I have a fair indication of who I was, or I know who I was in a number of those lifetimes. But this is the real us, the real you and I. And with it having our divine spark, that gives us our true personality. Now, a divine spark, what is it? In the book, the Cathar Codex, the dialogues, Henri de Boer said, it's really difficult to explain. It's somewhat indescribable, it's beyond the soul, and it's our immutable, unchanging individuality, which is given to us upon our creation, as is the gift of immortality for eternity, because upon creation we are eternal. No heaven, no hell to worry about, think about, concern ourselves with. We have the world of spirit, where we move in another dimension, we move in and out of, and it's good. I think this is good news. So the best analogy that I've had is that if one imagine, I can remember being when I was a kid and out in the bush, and we'd have a bonfire, and you sit there at night and everyone's talking away, and you'd see those flames, and every so often you see a spark emit from the flame and fly out 2 or 3 feet, a meter, and disappear. Well, the flame is like the source, the origin of all things, the creator. And from that, there's a spark that's emitted, just like a spark from the flame. So we are not the flame, and yet we are part of the flame. So I think that's one of the best descriptions I've had for us to imagine the idea of a divine spark. But having that's our eternal blueprint, fingerprint, thumbprint, for eternity. With that, we've got the gift of immortality. Now, like that mountain, not so much not a mountain to climb, but a mountain to get rid of, is to know, learn and understand who we are, and also to perfect ourselves and move towards our higher consciousness. And we certainly can't do that in one lifetime. We can't do that in many lifetimes. For most of us, we require many, many, many lifetimes. We're all at different levels, and we should respect people, even if they don't agree, or we feel people are not at our spiritual or mystical level. That's okay. It's like learning to dance. Even the finest dancers in the world have to learn to dance with the first step. So it's just doing it and until we perfect it. So I think it's good to know that whatever our DNA is, our genetic makeup is, that is our body. That is not our soul, our psyche, or our consciousness. That's another thing entirely. And I think it's good to know, and in fact, it helps towards, I think, a certain peace of mind, knowing that. Bye for now. Talk soon.